Welcome in alongside Royden Ogletree. And Royden, we have some. I'm gonna do this now, just as we try to find, after the first few months of this show, what the show is,
right? Like
what we're doing. We're gonna do new things when we can, but
all top fives.
Yeah. We're gonna do. We did I'm sure you might even saw it. You saw the thing we did on the CW, the Sports Tonight during the holidays. Yeah. It was all top fives. You know what? Like, we're gone. We got to do something.
The bit works, man.
Yeah, exactly. So, but anyway, we're going to do an NFL segments now. Like, we're going to kind of throw those in. It's football. We're going to throw some basketball in here in the coming weeks. We're going to grow this out a little bit. We're going to plant some seeds and see what grows.
I can't wait to hear your opinions on, like, the Miami Heat.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get there.
Like the February Milwaukee Bucks. Like, I want to hear.
And I've said this before. Like, I'm a guy, I enjoy the NBA. I do. But I don't, it's not my first go-to at the sports bar.
You mean college basketball? Right.
Yes, college basketball. Like, I'm far more intrigued by, college basketball, and even though it's less important, like the regular season than, say, football, you can take a couple losses, but there's some, real intensity there. You'll never see, the best player from Kentucky just sitting out because he's like, I played 3 days ago. I mean,
my knee hurts.
Yeah, look, who does this 2 times a week now?
Yeah,
it's not. That's the thing. Like the regular season, and I know that they're trying to change that, but the regular season in the NBA, they've got to shoot some more life into it for me, because I grew up in the era of the Bulls and the Pistons and the Lakers, like that kind of.
Well, when I was killing each other on the court.
Yeah, and then the Pat Riley Knicks. So you would watch a game, you would watch Bulls Knicks, and it was you would see guys with welts on their face,
right?
And that it wasn't phasing them.
It's hardcore defense when you could run out there and punch a guy.
Yeah. I'm sure Draymond Green watches stuff from 1995 Knicks, and it's
born in the wrong era,
and he's like, wait a minute.
Why am I?
Hold on. I just watched Anthony Mason straight throw a guy into Alonzo Mourning, and they just called a regular foul.
The people of Detroit treat Bill Laimbeer like he's a hero.
Yeah, look, he was here. So I've met Bill Laimbeer a couple times, because when he was a WNBA coach, he would come and scout Lady Bears games because they were, chock full of WNBA talent. And so I remember one time meeting him, just kind of in passing in the press room at the Farrell Center. And then I met him again when he was seated right next to me. And as a kid who grew up in early 90s, and when I was little, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, and Bill Laimbeer's one of these enforcers. I started talking to him, and I said, do people ask you to throw an elbow to them?
Just give them a forearm shiver?
Just give them a straight elbow to the chest so they can say you did that? And he goes, no, but I should charge for that. Yeah. And I was like, you could. I said, you could leave this whole coaching thing behind and just go to conventions and throw elbows into people. I promise you, there are hundreds of thousands of Detroit Piston fans that he just, put on the Bad Boys convention every year, and all right, here's my $100. I hope Bill Laimbeer gives me a black eye.
For $20, Vinnie Johnson will cross you over, but for $110, Bill Laimbeer will put you in a chokehold.
Yeah, exactly. Those things. They could make some serious money. I mean, look, there's big time actors.
Convention, by the way.
Yeah, there's big time actors that go do conventions like that. Yeah. Sometimes I'm surprised by looking through Instagram, Robert De Niro's at a Comic-Con? What the hell? Yeah. They play well. So anyway, but we're going to try some different things out. But first off, we're going to talk about, San Jose State's Brent Brennan on his way to Arizona, and the coaching cycle is almost complete. Now, we'll have to maybe do this again if Michigan makes an outside hire, if Jim Harbaugh takes an NFL job. And I say if, meaning when he does that. I really honestly think that once the Chargers complete their interviews, they're just going to call Jim back and be like, hey, would you like to coach Justin Herbert? And he's going, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
would you like to live in San Diego?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Which, by the way,
it's not San Diego, it's LA now.
Oh yeah, I can't.
I know it's
move
hard.
It back.
It's hard. They should move back.
They should move back, but it would take the owner to.
It's going to take a new owner.
Yeah.
To like say, all right, yeah, we're going to build a stadium of our own dollar and all that there. So, but no, so Brent Brennan goes to Arizona. I think it's a really good hire. He's done. I did not realize and here's why this is crafty a good hire. So Garrett, we talked about this all day yesterday, so you know. Okay. Arizona has a $240 million budget shortfall due to some sort of accounting error.
What?
Yes. So they have this big, gigantic budget shortfall that they're dealing with. Well, when it comes down to they also can't, because of Arizona state law, give coaches contracts longer than 5 years. So when someone like Jedd Fisch has a career season, you're gonna probably lose him because they're not going to give you longer than 5 years. Washington came in, gave him 7. They doubled his salary. Arizona's not in a position to be like, hey, we need to double our coach's salary. And they're like, yeah, we are going to only run hot water 3 days a week.
Yeah.
Through the athletic.
Eating ramen for months.
Yeah.
So.
Look. Cold showers for football, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And then nobody come up here and even turn the lights on Sundays.
Yeah.
We're going to shut the breaker off completely.
They've adopted all of the ERCOT stipulations.
Exactly. That's what they have. So, no, but you have that budget shortfall. Well, San Jose State has maybe the most shoestring athletic budget in all of FBS. Like, coaches set up their own, position coaches set up their own drills. There's not 7, right now, even Arizona, Brent Brennan will be able to be like, hey, 3 GAs, go set up this drill while the assistant coach, talks to the guys and does this. At San Jose State, they literally have to set up their own drills. And, I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, but when you're, at the FBS level, even San Diego State, who's in the same conference as San Jose State, they have GAs that do that. San Jose State has, 2 GAs because their budget is just smaller. It's what they do. And for him to go to 3 bowl games in 4 years at San Jose State on one of the most shoestring budgets athletically and especially football-wise in America means I think this guy can coach a bit.
Yeah, it's also a good scheme fit, too. I don't know how much San Jose State football our audience has watched over the past few years, but they're fun to watch. Them and Fresno State and to a point San Diego State. It's really fun and entertaining football.
Yeah.
But budget restrictions aside, I don't know how that's going to fare the first year in Arizona.
Well, I mean, and he's going to go and he's stepping into the Big 12, and it's a new league. But he did potentially get some good news today in that it appears that Noah Fafita and that
is the name.
Tatoria McMillan, his wide receiver, who's amazing, are going to stay at Arizona. That's big news.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people just thought that, Jedd Fisch is having his press conference right now at Washington. And then after he gets done with that, Noah Fafita and McMillan are just going to get on a plane together and go let's move to Seattle.
Yeah. I love grunge.
We're going to be like Frasier season 1. Let's go. But that's not that's not going to happen now. But it does bring up, and I've thought about this.
Didn't their quarterback transfer or no?
Yeah, well.
Delora entered the portal.
Yeah. Jane Delora is at Texas State now.
Right.
Now, for Washington, there's been an interesting development with Will Rogers in that he put his name in the portal. I think he took a visit somewhere. But he's at class apparently today, and so he might stay with Jedd Fisch, which would be a nice way for Jedd Fisch to start, knowing he at least has that locked up. Because all the rest of the
he was transferring.
He's in the portal, but he's not gone yet. So you can always pull your name out of the portal. It happens. I don't want to say all the time, but it happens. Yeah. It happens enough. I think every team who has guys in the portal will have one or two that I'm in the portal too, and they're I'm going to go get money somewhere, and then they're
no money.
Oh, I'm making as much as I can right here, so I'll just stay.
Turns out the market for me was highly overestimated.
Yes. Part of it is you get people in your ear, right?
Yeah.
You know, like, well, I mean, you're the second linebacker at Alabama, but you'd be the first at Louisville, and they'll pay you way more money. And then you call up Louisville, and they're like, yeah, no, that's about what you're worth.
Yeah.
Like,
Here
yeah, I
are
mean,
these- we can give you meal tickets to Papa John's.
we'd love to have you, but like, you know, if this is about you getting a raise, it's not going to happen. And you're like,
Right.
well, I don't think I want to move. You know,
Yeah.
like moving's a pain, even when you're in college. You know, like even when you have no things,
Right.
it's still a pain. So, but Ari Wasserman in The Athletic wrote about this, and I thought about this, and he even called it the Lincoln Caleb rule, in that from that time that Lincoln Riley took the USC job, and then took a couple players, but most notably the best quarterback in the country, just with him to USC. I thought, like, you know, I know that, like, you don't want to restrict athletes too much, but, like, there has to be something to keep this from getting too shady, right?
Right.
Where, you know, I kind of agree with Ari that, like, okay, you can go anywhere except the place that head coach went. So, how do you feel about that, Garrett?
I disagree with that because
Okay.
I feel like it nowadays, while most players traditionally should commit to a school or a program, that's not the case, right? You're committing to a coach. And you bring it up all the time, right? Like, if you're going to do that, you better make sure you commit to the head coach, not your position coach, yada, yada, yada. But if your head coach, the person you committed for, is leaving, I have no problem with you following them elsewhere. Now, if you're going to go in, like say you're a quarterback, say Fafita was going to go with him and you have Will Rogers there established as the guy. Now, if you're going to cause roster conflict, I might be a little apprehensive with that. But I don't mind a player following his coach if that's who he wants to be with and develop throughout his career. That doesn't bother me.
Yeah, and it goes even further down too with, like, Lincoln Riley also took a lot of commits with him to USC too.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah, he did. So I get, like, okay, maybe you guys are convincing me that, like, maybe it's not that big of a deal.
It's different.
It's
than
just like had Arizona lost their head coach, quarterback, best wide receiver, and like 5 of the players, you're like, man, does this seem even? Because look, if you're going to go to the NFL model, look, if Mike Vrabel takes the Cowboys job,
right,
he can't just the guys who are under contract. I mean, like, he might be able to get Derrick Henry to go there with him because he's a free agent.
Right.
But he can't just go, you know what I'd like these two guys. Like, I'd like Jeffrey
DeAndre
Simmons.
Hopkins, come
I
on
want
down.
Jeffrey Simmons to come with me because the Cowboys really need a guy like that. So, Jeffrey, transfer to the Cowboys. You know?
Right.
Like, that's where, you know.
I don't know. I think because it's so wide open, we've waxed poetic about why some limitations need to be put on it. I don't know what they are, completely honest with you, because it's like you don't want to restrict. Forever, it was we are restricting these players from doing what is in their best interest, or for their family or their future prospects, what have you. There's been a number of arguments about why the wait a year transfer rule thing doesn't make a lot of sense. I tend to agree with that up to a point where now, though, we have wholesale just shift every single year.
Yeah.
And there's no continuity anymore, and these programs are having to rebuild from scratch, it seems like, every year. Even these major programs are, are having to bring in dudes that may not fit right away instead of growing players and growing a team. And it leads to, in some parts of the country, a lesser product. Now, some parts we have said, we always talk about where it has worked.
Yeah.
But like Washington is the prime example of that.
It worked great.
It worked awesome.
Now they're getting the other side of that when, they're already going to have 8 guys in the draft, but now it's almost all 22 starters are gone.
Is it bad radio to be like, I don't have the answer? Because
it's fine. Like, it's fine to, like, I'm fine speculating on this and, like, finding what the thing is, but it does just kind of suck that, like, you can not only lose your head coach and your offensive coordinator and your defensive coordinator and, like, have to start over on that side, but then, like, not only that, but, like, the quarterback that he was hoping to have is probably also going to leave too.
Right.
Is there a way that, and this is probably illegal and would probably go together with the forming of unions and everything. But if you are an NIL collective, could you put something like an incentive in?
They're already backing out of half of
That's what I'm saying. But like say if you're an Arizona collective guy, you give Fafita, when he signs his deal, you have 1 year where you completely have to stay with this program. Like, could you do
Well, I think a lot of that has to, like, we had one of the NIL, like NIL lawyer on, and he said, look, a lot of these things, like Dylan Gabriel has some, we have to find a way to replace some of Dylan Gabriel has some appearances that he's not going to be able to, like, fulfill because now he's up in Eugene, Oregon, and he's gone. Look, that's his choice, but he knew that. But that was in the contract that we agreed to with this business and all these other things. So now we have to find somebody else for that business. Dylan Gabriel's not going to get that money, and now I have to go find for Dylan Gabriel money to replace the money that he decided to forego, but he's still going to want it because it's my job to find him these things. And this is one of the NIL agents that talked to us, and those kind of exist, but like you can maybe incentivize them to be like, listen, if you do not enter the transfer portal, you're going to guaranteed 15% raise in 1 year, 25% the next year.
Yeah, it'd be interesting
35% the next year.
Sliding scales into these contracts.
If you stay here for all 4 years or whatever, like you're going to get this much no matter what. Provided you're still on the team. So,
well, your question specifically was like, should they be allowed to follow their coach directly to these places? I tend to lean yes. I tend to lean on the side that, hey, I wanted to just come play for this coach. That's why I wanted to play here. I wanted to play for Lincoln Riley because he's the kingmaker or whatever for quarterbacks. It gets a little, it starts to get a little dicey when you start looking at lesser head coaches. Like, I'm going from, I can't even think of an example because I don't want to besmirch a school, but like a lower school. Let's take UTSA for example, or what have you. UTSA, because he's been linked to try and take all these jobs. He was linked to the A&M job. A lot of people at Baylor wanted him to be up there. You've had success at those levels, and then so you start to kind of get in the weeds when we aren't telling these student athletes like, is it always greener on the other side? And there's been articles written about like 50% of people that enter the transfer portal don't even find a new home, and so on and so forth. I think just more needs to be made about alerting these people, and they're college kids, so you may never even get through.
Yeah,
like you could have told me anything in the world when I was 20 years old. I probably wouldn't have listened to you, but I think there just needs to be more made about like, look, it may not always be. You may, and it needs to be on these coaches too. It's like, hey, if you come here, you may not start either.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Like I think that's what happened with Jordan Mailata when he went to Georgia. I think that Georgia was probably like, I don't see Kirby Smart being like, oh yeah, you're totally going to beat out Carson Beck.
That move never made any sense.
But he probably said like, look, you'll have a chance to compete, like that kind of thing. Like every job's always open, every practice, all that kind of bull crap, those things. And sometimes that's true and sometimes it's not.
Except for the 5-star that we paid $1 million. He probably was going to have the job.
But, that one, and then he switched because, I'm sure he went back and talked to his family and they're like, yeah, every job's open, every practice, shut up. Yeah. Like, listen, kid, I know that you probably had fun there, but let's if you want to start or have a chance to start, you need to go in a place that you're going to have a legit competition in spring and not like, oh, hey, let's see what this guy can do for maybe when Carson Beck goes and gets drafted in the first round next year.
Right.
They'll hit the ground running. And like, not only that, like you're going to a place that you'll have 3 5-stars behind you. Like they're like Georgia's like, they'll take a 3-star quarterback if it's they've got one scholarship available. They're like, well, we might as well take this kid. He was Mr. Georgia football in Rome, Georgia. Like, shoot, it could be the next Stetson Bennett. Come on board. But yeah, that's not how that works there.
I don't know. I think it just really would take a lot of honesty and a lot of self-reflection from a lot of these guys to really think about what is actually best for them. And I think we do need to get back to a thing in college football where, in pro football for that matter, because we have so many like bad quarterbacks, like sitting can be good.
Yeah.
sitting can be good. And I don't know how you communicate
Well,
that.
part of the problem is that money accelerates things, right?
Yeah.
Like, so if I'm an NFL owner and I draft, and I thought this might be fixed a little bit when they came up with the rookie wage scale in the NFL to where, look, Sam Bradford got $50 million to go to the Rams
and then get injured,
to write his name on paper. Like, that's what he did. And look, that was the market bared right then. I'm not mad at Sam Bradford, but if you're an NFL owner, like, you're like, man, I've got it. Like, I just paid this kid $50 million. He's not sitting very long. If he's sitting at all, I got to get my money's worth out of this guy, and he better start playing, as opposed to sitting there with a clipboard and a headset.
Yeah.
And I think that's in college football now too. Like, like sitting can be. I give a lot of credit to Dante Moore for just being like, you know what? My football career could get derailed if I don't sit somewhere and learn. And so I'm going to go to Oregon and sit behind Dylan Gabriel for a year, and then I'm going to try and take the world by storm.
Right.
So there's a lot of humility in that says, like, yeah, I know that I'm good, but, like, am I NFL good? Like,
I mean, isn't that essentially what Arch Manning's doing?
yes, Arch, like,
No, yeah.
and Arch. And it's kind of strange that Arch is doing that, given that, well, Peyton wasn't the guaranteed starter either when he went to Tennessee. I don't know if most people may not know this, but the starting quarterback when Peyton's freshman year at Tennessee was Todd Helton.
Oh, yeah.
So
That is right, yeah.
yes, and then Peyton, passed Todd Helton. Todd Helton's like, I don't care. I'm the best first baseman in America.
Baseball's more fun.
Yeah, like, I'm going to go play baseball. No skin off my back. Oh, shucks, I lost that. And then Eli started really early at Ole Miss too. But Arch Manning kind of knows. And the other thing that's happened is that, like we've talked about with this Arch Manning, he was not playing at the highest level of high school football. No. So he was going to need this time to be like, oh, crap. These guys around me are all a lot bigger and faster, and so it's good for him to get that adjustment. 2 years of sitting and waiting and, like, building that talent and growing into, like, getting on that meal plan and, doing the things are good. Yes. So those things are good, but
it is good. The only problem is that now these, like, Arch Manning's getting paid $1 million. He's getting paid more money than, like, Quinn Ewers and getting more press than, like, Quinn Ewers. And it's just like, that can't be good, For the site. Obviously, it hadn't affected them so far, but
I think
every Texas fan, anytime he throws an interception next year, is going to be like, "Oh my God, where's Arch Manning?"
Yeah. Well, and look, that's the case.
That's been in time memoriam, but
that's the case with all. The backup quarterback's always the most popular guy, especially when his last name is Manning.
Right.
Like, it's just that's going to be, because what Texas fans, and here's what I'm surprised they don't see. None of the Mannings ever won a national championship.
Very true.
None of them ever did. Eli didn't. Peyton did. Peyton, the Florida Gators owned Peyton Manning. It's, I'm sure, the most shameful thing that's ever happened to him in his life. But the Florida Gators owned him, right?
There's some stuff on his Wikipedia page.
Even that. No.
Right.
No, but yeah, the Florida Gators owned Peyton Manning. He couldn't get past the Gators. They were better than Tennessee. Then he leaves. T. Martin's the quarterback, and Chris Winkie breaks his neck, and they win I say he breaks his neck. He had a neck injury against Wake Forest. And they beat Florida State in 98 and won the title. So, that, like, Peyton never won. Eli never won. God, Archie never won. Like, that was, and so, but people see, like, this is the next man. This is the Manning that will fulfill the college prophecy.
The one ring, yeah.
Yeah. No, and so we'll see. And I think it's good that he's sitting. And I think, like, but not everybody also has the luxury of doing that like Arch Manning does.
No.
So, he may be a bad example, but there have been plenty of guys who just sat and waited their turn.
What about, Garrett Nussmeier would probably be your best example.
Yes.
He has sat at LSU. He wanted to commit to LSU. He committed to the school. He sat through multiple guys coming in, winning the Heisman, and now he'll have his opportunity this year. But you got so many people who aren't going to be patient enough to do that, and only time's going to tell. I'm apprehensive with that because if you're a quarterback like Nussmeier who has been sitting this long and you've been getting the reps in practice, you haven't been getting the first team reps. So how far from a developmental standpoint are you set back by waiting? That's the kind of double-edged sword on it.
No, it is. It's a really tricky issue. It's
well,
a
the
really,
days
really
of Bryce
tricky
Petty and Seth
Russell
are far gone.
Yeah, no. Bryce wasn't going to wait that long.
No.
But you do have to, look, Malachi Nelson is going to Boise State. I'm sure he'll be really good at Boise State, but sometimes you throw your line out in the water, and USC to Boise State, as far as prestige goes, is a significant drop off.
Let me ask you this: is there anything that these schools besides the NIL can do, or obviously because the NCAA is going to die, we're lamenting it in real time. But is there anything that these schools, conferences, or otherwise can do besides NIL to can they write it into a stipulation that when you commit to that feels like that's gonna backfire? That now I'm talking about it, but write into the stipulation your commitment is for 2 years.
I do think
in NCAA basketball you have to stay a year if you're gonna.
I do think that when the new structure comes down, that might be part of it, in that there can be and you can. Cole Kubelik was on the show and proposed it yes, you can agree to this or you cannot, but you're not going to have guarantees. You can be a guy who says, yes, I'm going to sign this 1 year, I'll just sign 4 1-year deals, or you can sign a 2 year, whatever you can do. And then the transfer portal thing is at least somewhat contained. There's a lot of different ways they can do it. And I do think, though, because if they're going
to be more like contracts, you
think?
But
yeah, because, it's going to have to be, because if you're going to be sharing in revenue, you can't, especially when there's going to be clearly also that graduated revenue scale that if everybody's sharing in this revenue, but the teams that win are going to get more, they're going to want to keep people in place for longer. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. There's going to be something that balances it out. But until there's, unionization or some sort of employment contract, there's no way to do that right now because, it's this weird entity that doesn't really make sense.
There is no governing body, I think it'll be interesting. Go ahead.
So college athletics was something that was invented, and when it was invented, it was not designed to really make money. Right? It was designed.
No, it was extracurricular. It was basically if you were playing fraternity sports intramural sports.
It was the side hustle of universities.
Yeah.
Any profit they sold on concessions and T-shirts and things like that was just their side hustle. It was their Etsy for people from this area. That's what they were doing. They were that's how it was. And granted, again, power brokers came up a lot quicker than people maybe even realized then. But at the end of it, there wasn't nobody was making big radio contracts. Mm-hmm. Occasionally, if your game was on the radio, that was a big deal. Or you had your local radio guy, and then there were 3 or 4 channels on television, and a couple of them would have games. There'd be 2 to 4 games.
Notre Dame.
Yeah, so all those things were different. And then when every game can be on TV and there's multimedia contracts, and then this goes from an industry that was not for profit to one that is very much for profit. Mm-hmm.
Not according to their tax bracket, but yes.
No, but yes, it's one of those things that so now, we're in this phase of, a lot of people are well, this is not how it was when I was coming up in 1974. You're yeah, there's a lot of things that are different in 1974. Try smoking in a restaurant right now. Just things are different, okay? Let's address how they are, and not how they were.
What do you mean I can't smoke in this airplane?
Yeah, so.
I don't know. It'll be interesting
kids
to
and
see.
Your wussy seatbelts.
Airbags, it just used to be a metal dash.
Yeah, those kind of things. We have to move on, right? I think that's when it'll change. All right, in the next segment, Alabama's roster is open like Costco, really, right now. Mm-hmm. Mike Norvell's shopping in bulk. He's gotten 5 Alabama guys already, and that's not even to talk about everybody who's going to get some of these recruits that have already been committed for the next couple classes. And I don't know, even as good as Kirby Smart is at recruiting, if we will ever see a coach that had a strong hold on talent like Nick Saban. Because people were going to Alabama, even maybe to the detriment of their playing time early on, because Nick Saban said, I want you to come here. And so
In like 8th grade, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, like there were guys like if Nick Saban said you're going to come here, that's like if Dave Chappelle says, do you want to open for me?
Right.
Or like, Elton John's like, hey, come out and do 10 songs before I come on. Like, yes, I will do that. Like,
think about that.
Absolutely. You cannot match that. So, are we going to see a completely new era when it comes to talent distribution just because of one guy leaving? I think we are. This is 365 Sports.